Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Daily Freedom. I'm your host, Fernando Lopez, and today I have the privilege and honor to be interviewing a new friend, Steve Bickel, who is a serial entrepreneur and inventor, who I met through OB Networking. Welcome, Steve. I'm so excited to be
Thank you.
speaking with
Yeah.
you today. And the last time I saw you, you were presenting
Customer development.
with the business canvas.
Yeah, I had a business canvas. Basically, business canvas generally goes with it. Yeah. So it's pretty much how to test your ideas to find out if customers care. Like, do you have people to sell whatever you want to sell? That's what customer development means.
And you were
Yeah.
sharing how you've been working with professors here in universities in San Diego. What have you been working on?
Well, we do advanced materials. So my business partners are patent attorneys and scientists in advanced materials. So if you need a long distance electric vehicle, it's a material in the battery that's the holding it back. And if you need a bridge that doesn't fall down, and if you need an airplane that won't have problems when it's flying, they're all about advanced materials. So to upgrade the world for the new cleaner energy world, we need materials that will do batteries, do electric motors, do solar panels. So I sort of know a little bit about a lot across a broad spectrum of the kinds of materials that we believe will be in great demand. And I got that way because the professors liked how aggressive I was about getting their stuff out into the world. Like, I went in there saying, let's fix the desalination problem so all of Africa can have fresh water. So I approached UC Irvine, wrote a patent with one of their guys, and it turned out it financially wasn't that good of an idea. I mean, it was possible, but it just wasn't going to save that much money. So that's how I sort of entered the door, and that brought me into a team of advanced materials people at UC Irvine and UC SD.
So speaking of this water, so here in California, I've heard since I moved here that there is a drought.
Yeah.
And there's I'm very naive in certain things. So I look to the ocean, there's a lot of water in the ocean. So what's the big deal?
Well, it's so Carlsbad, 20 miles up the coast, we have a desalination plant, but it's capable of providing maybe 5% of San Diego County's water. One plant, which was expensive to build. They use nylon to push the water through. So essentially the water is diffused through nylon, and it takes 600 pounds per square inch of force to push the water through that nylon so that the salt doesn't come with it. And that's really expensive. So the size of the motors essentially you need to push are big. So your water gets expensive when you pull it out of the ocean. So it's, up until this point, it's still been a little bit cheaper, just a little bit, to just wait for water to come from the Colorado River or rain to occur or whatever. And there's forecasts that in the next 20, 30 years, it won't matter. The water is going to be, there's going to be such limited supply of water. We're going to be desalinating lots of water. So that's why I got involved. I thought, I'll jump in early and be part of the wave. I did that decision about 5 years ago, but I didn't really understand how difficult it is to replace the nylon with something that we tried to go from 600 pounds per square inch down to 300. That was the most we could gain after looking at the science of it. And that still takes some big motors. I was hoping to do it. I was hoping to take a jug, you dip it in the ocean, you put it on your kitchen table for a night or a week, and it comes out fresh water. And it's just not very practical.
What part of the salt water is the relationship of the human body in the fresh water and the human body in salt water? Is there something, a solution that's not taking the salt out of the water, that's something else that could be maybe having the human bodies becoming more, being able to integrate salt water?
I don't know that would work. You could wash your car with salt water. There'd be a little bit streaky, but we could do strange things like have salt water available for certain tasks. I don't think the public would like that. The salt starts oxidizing, everything would rust.
Got it.
I don't know that there is a good solution other than just paying the higher price for the water at this point.
Yeah.
It's getting close. There's people working on it. I sort of know the groups around the world working on clean water cheap, and none of them are breakthrough yet. No, I don't even see it happening within 10 years.
Got it.
Yeah, it's still going to be expensive, but maybe in 50 years.
I'm looking forward to it. Any companies in the world right now that, based on where they're heading their technology, that you feel could then overlap to help this water problem?
Well, Saudi Arabia pretty much is run on desalinated water.
Okay.
So they have so much oil and so much capability of generating power. They don't worry, and they're not going to get natural water anyway. So they don't really think about how much they're paying for the water. It's just part of their life in Saudi Arabia. And there's other countries around Saudi Arabia. So there's always going to be a need to upgrade their water systems. And that's what we have sort of, we almost went to Saudi Arabia for funding when we were wanting to do this, but still we couldn't come up with a technology that was good enough and clean enough to where it would be worth their effort to replace it. And now we sort of know in the last few years that we were sort of off base, and we had one calculation wrong, and now we realize we had another calculation wrong. So I don't think water is going to change much. I think global warming, one of the biggest problems is going to be drought. I mean, the two problems I see from global warming that nobody seems to know how to deal with are droughts. Hurricanes, they've always been hurricanes, and so they will damage more houses possibly. But droughts, particularly California, and ocean acidification are the two issues that loom, in my mind. So that's why I started working on the ocean acidification side of things. So with the chemists from UC, we're now working on robots that we think will help regrow the kelp forests, which are dying. So that's the effort that we're doing. That's pretty much what we do at the University of California, is we've been looking for who's making the next solar panel. So one of the advantages I have over the average person who votes for presidents and governors and Congress and Senate is I can see the future through the University of California. So I just watch all the scientific papers that are coming up at UC, and we can ask the professors questions, and we can about forecast when certain things are going to happen. Yeah. And what's really probable is very inexpensive solar. So, everybody that's sort of going, oh, poo-poo, solar can't do this and solar can't do that. It's not true. There is going to be very inexpensive solar and very inexpensive battery and other energy storage. It's just not easy to ramp it up fast. It's the only real issue is how much does it cost to ramp it up, get the technology squared away. So there's really good news on the horizon. Anybody that tells you they want to keep their gas car, I don't know, why do you want to keep your gas car? The only question is, when is it going to disappear? It's not a matter of, if, it's just a matter of when. And your car is going to become half the price of it is now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And so regarding kelp and the robots you've been working with, what's the situation? Why kelp? What has, if you don't do what you want to do, what's going to happen in the next 10, 100 years?
Well, when Al Gore was around the year 2000, Al Gore was running for president, and a lot of people thought he was a little bit nuts, saying, oh my gosh, the world's about to fall apart. Well, what Al Gore missed is the CO2 getting absorbed into the ocean. So he didn't talk about it at all. A few people knew that CO2 was getting absorbed in the ocean. And there was a few people that said, oh my gosh, it might hurt the coral reefs. Well, it turns out it's a lot worse than that. It's not only dissolving the coral reefs, but the kelp is dying off. Crabs died last year. So in the Gulf of Alaska, in the Bering Sea, there were expected to be 1.2 billion snow crabs. So when you go to a restaurant, you order crab, you usually get snow crab. You might get some big crabs, some of the other more expensive crabs. But snow crabs is the crab that generally you're going to get, at least in California, if you're going to go get crab meat. And the fishermen that drag these little traps along the bottom, they weren't finding crabs. So suddenly there was a massive die out of snow crabs. to where the 1.2 billion was cut down to 0.2 billion, you know, so we basically had 200 million crabs instead of 10 times or 5 times that. And it looks like it's just the ocean acidifying. We can't be positive, but there's nothing that really explains it other than if you look at sea creatures, you know, particularly shore-based sea creatures like crabs. Crabs are deeper water, but there's a lot of shore-based creatures. They have eggs that they lay and spores that they spew out that seed the new creature to come. And those spores and those eggs are very sensitive to temperature and very sensitive to the amount of CO2 in the air. So when a crab is laying eggs, it appears that evolutionarily, those eggs are designed to not hatch if the water's polluted.
Wow.
So the crab knows what it's doing. It's like, why would I want to lay my eggs where it's polluted? Well, now that the CO2 is increasing in the ocean, to the crab, well, to the genetics of the crab, it looks like there's pollution everywhere, which there essentially is. So they're not hatching. It's so the crab is sort of going, well, why waste an effort? You know, that's so the evolutionary clocks within the animals are saying, no, don't do it. It's getting too polluted. And the problem is we don't know how to turn off the pollution. You know, everybody's using CO2. The CO2 is getting absorbed into the ocean. The ocean is filling up with CO2, creating an acidic condition. And the crabs appear to be the first species that said, well, we just won't hatch.
Wow.
You know, so we don't know what to do. We really have crabs, snow crab won't hatch, the kelp is dying out. Bacteria are going after the kelp as it warms up. So, you know, as the temperature of the ocean warms to a certain point, the kelp does not grow as hardily. It likes 55-degree water. And here in La Jolla last year, September, which is about 4 months ago, it got to 78.
Wow.
So when the temperature got to 78, the kelp just sort of gave up. Fish and bacteria came in and ate it.
Wow.
Just sort of disappeared. Now, it didn't completely disappear, but it really lets us know that 78 was a record temperature, I believe. When I was a child and I used to swim in the ocean here, it would get to about 70 degrees, and now it's getting to 78. I mean, I've never heard of that before. 72 we used to hear about, then 74, then 76, and now 78. So the ocean seems to, the problem with the creatures in the ocean, why they're so vulnerable, is they're so sensitive. It just takes like the current to change, and then the warmer water just hits a region and just takes out all the creatures in terms of their ability to prosper the way they have been. So we really have a problem with everything that's relying upon coral reefs and kelp forests, and it's just starting. So so from a business standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. You want to sell to people who are emotionally attached to what you're selling. So what we're selling is a future for their kids, you know. So anybody that wants to vote politically, they want their kids to be able to have a nice place like they've had. You know, that's sort of how humans are built, to reproduce, have a good generation, another good generation, another. You know, we want our species to survive. We want the world to survive. So from a business standpoint, you want to sell into that, you know. So that's what I said. Oh my gosh, this is a perfect thing to sell into. You know, but then how expensive is it going to be? You know, how hard is this? Can I do this? You know, so a year ago or 9 months ago, I started reading everything I could about kelp. Came up with a plan, checked against other plans. I've been talking to kelp experts around the world, so I'm a part of the forum. And as you can tell, I can talk for a long time.
Good. I'm loving this. I'm loving this because I'm noticing how, I guess, most people don't know about these things, and how we can then start being aware. Once there's awareness, then people can start making better decisions about how they vote, how they lead their lives. So please continue.
Yeah. So the one thing that I would suggest, so I run a meeting where we help people get investment for their plans. You know, so if you have a business plan, particularly if you have a product, particularly if it's tech related, we run a meeting called 1 Million Cups. And I was just a member for a while. Then I learned enough to start running the meeting after about 5 years. And what we want is for you to succeed such that you'll be able to take your business and buy a house. You know, that's sort of the basic game plan. So one of the things we tell people is to sell into an emotional need. You want it to be emotional, that you can see it staying that way. So if you're a surfer and you love to surf, you want to sell them a surfboard that's better than the last surfboard, or at least has better graphics on it. Something has to be inspiring them emotionally to continue to want to use that surfboard. That's sort of what you want to be doing in all businesses. It could be accounting. So you're the savior of a company because they're never going to have a tax problem, right? So you're the emotional savior of the company just by being an accountant. That's good. Right? Yeah. So it's always got an emotion behind it. So the one thing I would suggest to the public out there is realize that climate issues are real and they're emotional. So if you start aligning your head with helping the climate, helping everybody in the future, you're going to prosper now. So the fallacy that I keep seeing on certain, we'll say, by the way, I've never been a Democrat, and I used to be a Republican. So I don't like taking political, positions in this game. It's too confusing when it's me versus them. But if you're just trying to be for prosperity and survivability and happiness, you really want to sell into clean energy, because there's nothing that's going to grow as well as clean energy on a massive scale that I can see for the next 50 years. So you want your kids getting jobs in clean energy, or clean the environment, we'll call it, clean, healthy, prosperous, organic, all that stuff. You really need to align with that if you want to prosper, because the dirty side of things, big oil was created so countries could defend themselves. Hitler, when he decided to take over Europe, he immediately went into Czechoslovakia and took over the oil fields as fast as he could. He needed the seaports, for Poland, and he needed the oil fields of Czechoslovakia. So dirty energy, which is really a lot of power concentrated in storage tanks that you've pumped oil out of the ground to fill, that represents a kind of egocentric power. And that's literally what happened with dirty energy. Dirty energy was used as the fuel for tyrants to take over the world. And now we're entering an era where there are no storage tanks for solar energy that are going to be worth much. You cannot create massive fields of solar storage. It happens every day. So there's actually a big blessing in all this. The tyrannical lure of having all sorts of energy and power for tanks and ships and guns is going to disappear. So if everybody just aligns with that, the whole purpose of having wars is going to disappear. It's just not going to be there anymore. There might be some skirmishes around food and water, but they're easy to solve, relatively speaking, compared to everybody trying to drive tanks over your country. So it's really quite a blessing that we're shifting towards clean energy. And if I understand that some people are really attached to their big pickup trucks with giant motors and cruising through the desert, with lots of gas being consumed, loud engines, but that is not sustainable. And so the one myth that if I can speak to a massive audience, it would be that there's a really big myth around prosperity and dirty energy. There's just, largely because the emotionality is going to completely shift to clean. It's starting, and it's going to be a complete shift. So if you want to struggle with your lifestyle and your children's lifestyle, then you can stay with dirty, or you can just go to clean, and you're going to prosper. And it's just because the jobs are all going to shift to clean energy. There's twice or 3 times as many jobs every year for clean energy now than there is for dirty energy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What are some companies that you've seen that have inspired you for where they're going and providing jobs in the clean energy sector?
That's the other beauty about clean energy. It's because the silicon that puts a solar panel on the roof of the house is sand from the desert. And that's all over the world. Nobody can own the sand that produces solar panels. There's not really any rare metals in the solar panels. And it's going to shift from expensive silicon to inexpensive polymers. So you're going to have on the roofs solar panels that cost half or 25% of the ones that are on there now. And they're going to be easy to put up there. So what that means is big companies are going to stay away. I mean, relatively. So there'll be big solar companies, but there'll be lots of small solar companies that make really good products. And that means the power shifts back from corporate America to the people. So solar energy is about a shift towards all humans becoming equal. In other words, solar power is going to get so cheap, we'll just send it to Sudan. We'll fill the Sudan desert with enough solar so all of their cities have solar power. They don't have to worry about heating in Sudan. Well, they don't really think about that too much there, but they'll have air conditioners and they won't worry about it. You know, it's going to be an evening of the power struggle on Earth. So that means the big company solar, I mean, I used to work for Kyocera. So 25 years ago, I worked for Kyocera and they were making solar panels at the time. But, you know, they're a huge Japanese company making solar. Well, they've lost massive amounts of the shares of the solar panels because it's so easy for anybody to do it. Clearly, China is sort of the leader because they got cheap labor. But anybody is going to be able to do it. You know, we can do it in Arizona, not much cheap, not much more expensive. So that's what I really think the blessing is that in that wars will disappear, economies will become more localized. We don't need trucks bringing us solar panels because we got sand. You know, we got the basic ingredients for solar panels here. You know, we don't have a factory right here in San Diego. We have them. There's some in Arizona. But there's just so many blessings that are coming from, I'll call it the awakening to preservation on all levels, the organic foods. You know, my father died from a chemical poisoning in his lymph system, which became lymphoma. And, you know, we sort of know which chemicals it was. We can't prove it, but we sort of are pretty sure. And so my dad paid with his life. He only lost maybe 10 or 15 years of his life, but he paid with his life from a cancer that came from chemicals, you know.
In the food.
In his skin. He was using insecticides, essentially.
Got it.
So things that got on his skin when he was a kid and older created a cancer. So there's just this opportunity to prosper with clean and let go of the fallacy that there's going to be a problem associated with the change. It's actually quite the opposite.
I sense a lot of optimism and opportunity for people then to start having small businesses.
Yeah.
Being self-sufficient.
Yeah.
If anyone listening, watching this, and they're probably asking, how do I get started? Maybe it's a small business owner has it's been working, it's been paying the bills, but they want to now move towards, they're inspired about this conversation. What should they do next?
Well, I can talk about the future. I can talk about right now. I think I'll shift back to talking about right now because I've been talking about the future. So in 1 Million Cuts, we see people bring in their business ideas and they say, help me create a slide deck to present to investors so I can test my idea and see if I can get money. You know, they want 50,000 to market whatever they're selling, or they want just advice because they're coming out of college and they're not sure if what they learned in school is worthy of making a product. So we teach at 1 Million Cups a way to create 10 slides that would be PowerPoint style slides that help them present their idea to themselves. So really they're making a presentation to themselves so they can see if they really got something, and then to investors. You know, so we look at it, we review it with them, we go over how their slides might be reordered, and then we help them present it to investors that might be interested. A lot of the kids that come to us that are younger, they're out of school, they're software types, and they're doing apps. You know, so we've helped fund a few different apps, you know, get them get investors interested in what they're doing. But there's been a lot of environmental products, cosmetic problems that were natural stuff that have come through. I mean, I've probably seen 500 to 700 companies in our meetings, and I've seen the ones that don't work. One thing I can tell you don't don't try to sell a marketing app for bars. So I saw so many people creating a bar that would let them know which, an app that would let them know which bar to go to downtown because they had good music. And I was going, so you have an app that's just for this 1 square mile of downtown. And you want to sell it in the big market. It didn't make rational sense because they only had enough ability to put in the businesses that were in downtown San Diego, which was maybe, I'll say, 30 different bars that have music. And they tried to fill them up, but then somebody else comes out with the same app about 6 months later. So that didn't work.
All right. Point.
It would probably work if you could get the global calendar for all the best bars in the world, and you just have the one app that did that.
Yeah.
But nobody can do that apparently.
Right. That would be fun. And then, and then selling then selling somehow ads or similar to what Elon Musk is doing now with Twitter, which I'd love to ask your opinion on that, if you know anything, if you've been following the news.
I don't know what he's actually trying to do. Well, I was a software programmer early in my world. And so a lot of times I would be on a software project when I was younger, and I could tell it was bloated. Like there was twice as many people working on it as needed to be. And I think he sensed that and decided to let go of half of Twitter, thinking he could save the money and it would come back around. He's probably right. He'll probably save on the technology side of it, but I don't know what else he's doing over there.
Got it.
I'm sort of confused about him sometimes.
Right. When you talked about the power to take the salt out of the water, the amount of force, I was thinking about, say, Tesla and the battery and the solar panels and their batteries and their technology. And have you ever thought about what Tesla is doing in their technology as capturing the solar energy, storing in batteries and using that power to desalinate the water?
Yeah, I think that's going to end up happening eventually. The replacing of the nylon in the desalination machines will happen, and it will get more efficient. It's just not that much of an expense to keep using the old technology. They don't have the membrane perfected yet, and from what I can see, it's too difficult of a problem to solve fast.
Yeah,
there's a whole host of chemistry problems that are difficult to solve that'll start getting easy as AI takes on. So we're gonna use AI to build molecules, and we'll even be able to tell the AI, make sure they're extremely safe plastics, for instance. So nylon's a plastic. We'll replace the membrane with another plastic, and we'll just make sure it's very safe. The thing I should probably mention here, I think I know something I want to talk about that people might be interested in. And that is, let's imagine that you live in a little town, or you live in Ocean Beach, where we are now, and you want to start a business. Just be very open to what business you're trying to start. So at the meeting that we were at last week, a few days ago, I said that imagine that you wanted to open a flower shop and that you wanted to do it in Ocean Beach. I don't know if there are any flower shops in Ocean Beach right now, but let's just imagine that you would like to serve your local community with something similar, some kind of shop, like maybe pizza, healthy this, some kind of restaurant idea, So I actually investigated this about a week ago. I said, the LB Farmers Market, why isn't there healthy pizza over there? Why don't I just create a food cart? So I did a little bit of research for an afternoon to find out, and I found out, you can make a food cart, you can make pizza there, you'll need a health license, there's all sorts of things that you'd have to go through, but there's a lot of competition over there. So if you were to go into a market with a cart type business, what do you have to pay attention to make sure that you're not wasting your time and will succeed? And the key thing is to just test, so that's what customer development is about. So if you look at what's happening at the OB Farmers Market right now, there's about 20 food vendors at least, maybe 25. So if you go there, it's quite obvious that people go there and they want to eat while they're there. So then the question becomes, well, what's not being sold there that could be sold there? And so that just requires a test. Now, it's a fairly expensive test unless you would get a partner, So if you go to the Obie's Farmers Market and somebody already has a health food permit, you could piggyback on their permit, be their friend, and say, let's try this product. I really want to try a product. I want to get into the market. Will you help me? So then you don't have to go out and get your own food prep area, because food prep areas that are on wheels sort of get expensive. So the basic fundamental idea is that you want to find out how to inexpensively answer the question of what would sell at the farmer's market. And if it's food, you would need to set up a test that allows you to prep food there, or bring food in without spending a whole lot of money getting set up. And for instance, you could do healthy pizza. You could even probably cook it at somebody's kitchen that's certified to cook that, bring it to the farmer's market and start, let's say somebody's selling gyro sandwiches and you want to do vegan pizza. Well, you can just ask if you can use the corner of their stall to get the test going. So it sounds sort of complicated because you're not really hiding in your apartment, figuring it all out before you suddenly descend on the farmer's market, but it's much more efficient because you're not spending the time and the effort, and you're just asking for a corner of somebody's existing spot and their existing structure to do a test. The same thing can be said for any business idea. So let's imagine that you were going to do a flower shop, like I said before, a flower cart in Ocean Beach. You could just start in your driveway if you live in Ocean Beach, and you just have signs that say flowers here every day, blah, blah, blah. And particularly test out, Valentine's era, the week before Valentine's Day or whatever. But it's the mindset of setting up the inexpensive test that becomes central to your plan, but not obsessing on what kind of flowers it is or what kind of pizza, if it was the pizza idea. So you need to think some of that, but you have to test the location, the people that are attending that location or driving by that location. Will they really pull over their car to grab flowers from you? Or do you have to be in a parking lot where it's really easy for them to stop? If they stop to talk to you, do they just want the flowers or just want the pizza? Or do they want coffee as well, or tea, or some kind of drink in bottles? Like, how do you do a test inexpensively and then maybe even not incur the cost of the equipment or the materials that you're trying to sell? So if you're trying to find out if your flower shop could also offer tea in bottles, maybe you can get the tea in bottles from somebody that would let you bring them back, So it's those kinds of thoughts where you're trying to test as efficiently and as quickly as possible that becomes central to your business. And the way you set up that kind of test is by writing down your assumptions. So like if I was going to create a flower shop, I would say, Sunset Cliffs Boulevard is really where the flower shop needs to be because there's so many cars that are driving on Sunset Cliffs Boulevard. I need to get those people. That's the key to this. But you want to write that down as something that you need to test. That would mean that you put a little flower stand on Sunset Cliffs for a weekend, and then you move it over to Voltaire Street and test it there the next weekend. And the weekends seem similar to you. So you really know whether it is Sunset Cliffs Boulevard that matters. Is it the number of cars? Whereas Voltaire is more of a casual, slower drive. Maybe it doesn't matter. Like maybe the people will stop more easily on Voltaire, but you didn't know that until you ran the test. So if you are going to be a realtor in San Diego, you don't really know if your personality is the one that draws people into real estate. Like, are you the type, like my sister's a really good realtor. So she sells a lot of ski condos. And something about my sister's personality makes her really successful at it. I probably would be a terrible realtor, not terrible, but I would be mediocre because I'm not the naturally joyous person my sister was. Like when I was a little kid, we'd go to a party with my parents bringing us. My sister would be up dancing with people, and I'd be sort of hiding in the corner, So my sister's the play with everybody kind of personality. I'm more of the thinker and sitting in the corner. So I wouldn't have to test that part anyway.
Right. What I'm hearing you is it's for business owners to think through many iterations, many ways that things could go with an open mind, have an intention, but be very open-minded with what could come about, what kind of type of flour, kind of pizza, and not be so fixed on how, but be open, have the open mind to learn what the market responds. It's I like that a lot.
It's something that you're doing anyway, so everybody's testing all the time, whether they think about it or not, but you want to just be deliberate before you waste all your money.
Besides solar clean energy, what are some things some opportunities some needs that are not being met that you feel like people could go into and have a market, have clients right away?
Well, real estate, if you wanted to get a good job, let's say you don't have a job that you're happy with and you don't want to give up money, like you don't want to go start from scratch by getting a degree in something new. So you want to enter something that's relatively easy to enter and have a decent income. What you generally want to stay away from, that the things that require expertise are the high sales volume issues. So it's generally a bad idea to try to start selling something that costs $10 unless you're sure you can get to high sales volume. So that would be the flower shop example. So a flower shop that was where people were driving by, it's very important to test that one because you're selling $10 and $20 bouquets of flowers. So that's a lot of small numbers of things. You want to shift more towards houses. So selling houses is typically much better because one sale is thousands of dollars. And that industry is never going to go away. So anytime a house sells, in San Diego, $600,000 to $800,000 is changing hands. Probably it's higher than 8 now. I don't know what it is, but a condo is probably 600,000 now. A house is probably 800,000 or 900,000 on average, or something maybe. So just getting a piece of that in a creative way. So the creative way part is where I think the value add is in today's social world. So there's a lot of realtors out there that are friendly, but they need to value add their services. So let's say in San Diego, there's 10,000 real estate agents right now. So all 10,000 of those people could be your clients. So what you're doing is you're selling the ability to be the pilot of a drone that takes aerial photos of the property. And, I would think that a value add business on real estate sales or home improvement, which leads to real estate sales, would be a very easy one to get into. So I say home improvement. So that can just be being a house painter. I think there's plenty of opportunities for people that are fixing up what's already deteriorating, So that's house repair I think you could be a consultant. I'm trying to shift it back to clean energy that would come in and evaluate what upgrades could be made to a property pre-sale or post-sale. So when a house changes hands, there's an opportunity to sell it just prior to it being sold. So that's often paint or gardening. So you trim everything back, put in new bushes, put in new lawns, so you can do that before the sale. But interior to the house, you could do an inexpensive upgrade is just to blow a lot of insulation into the attic. It doesn't have enough here in San Diego. You could also do, window replacements before it's sold. You could essentially sell a house in San Diego that's been made into an energy efficient and cute place before the sale. So you potentially could go to real estate agents and pre-sell them on everybody that contacts. So let's say you have Sally and Brenda. So Sally is the real estate agent that emphasizes upgrading whatever is easy to upgrade from an energy point of view on a house before it's sold, and Brenda doesn't. So then that means that Sally's ad in the wherever she's advertising is going to be, I can upgrade your home and we can get more out of it, by being clean energy focused on the pre-sale part of it. So now Sally is actually becoming your advertising agent. She's going around changing her ads and then contracting that business to you because you clued her into that idea. Whereas Brenda, her ads sort of don't look so great anymore. They just look like ordinary real estate agent ads, So that's the kind of thing that I would do in today's market. And it's because there's massive amounts of money going through it. And so you're sort of becoming the person who's selling gold miners the gold pans. You're saying, hey, there's all these houses that are still going through. You don't want to jump in, compete with all the agents, but you're doing an upgrade on it. Those kind of people exist now, but you could be the specialist essentially that goes in and inspects the home for where it's needed, that knows how to get the whole package done. You can do, who does the windows the best for the cheapest, who does the insulation the best for the cheapest. So you're the person and you know how to paint it properly for interior decoration points of view. You may even know how to bring in, I've heard, and my sister would probably verify this, that if you take a property and you have old dilapidated furniture in it, it's not going to sell well. Because the person's first impression is, there's a bunch of old furniture in here. So you almost want to take furniture out of the house and have it sell empty as opposed to full of furniture. So you could even have, a friend of mine used to do this, an ability to bring in furniture that's on lease while the house is being shown. And I've been told that it might only cost $2,000 to lease the whole house full of furniture, but that $2,000 turns into $20,000 in the sales price of the house. So you've just made 1,000% on the cost of just bringing in artificial furniture for just the showing of the house. Those are the kinds of things. So there's other things that are high volume. There's sort of business to business thing. That's a business to consumer business, selling of houses most of the time. And there's probably similar things in the business to business side. A friend of mine sold lighting. So if you now that I think everything's shifted to LED in San Diego, so it's not so beneficial. But 10 or 15 years ago, you could have been a lighting consultant. You come into a building and you know how to upgrade all the lighting that they have. You look around, you see all the lighting fixtures. You know how to make them all LED. What else is high volume? There's a lot of high volume stuff that is specialty. Big business equipment. You could be, I don't know, fleet car sales, maybe specialist.
Yeah, I love everything you said. This idea, relocation services, what I was thinking when you were sharing, it was like, oh, relocation specialist, relocation services. And there's lots of people still moving here, and we can tell by the rents being risen, the amount of even though the market, I've since now the listings have started coming down on their prices,
Oh, right.
and I started seeing for the first time real estate signs for being going up on houses, where before there were no signs, even though there were a lot of sales, because they didn't need to put signs up, and now there are signs up here on some
Oh,
houses.
really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I started noticing that.
Oh, wow.
So this it shows, this market slowing down a little bit, which is great for people who like investing in properties like myself.
Yeah.
I loved what you shared, love the ideas. I think what you shared today will give a lot of inspiration to the people that listen to this to this conversation, to this chat. And I remember you wanting to, you want to drive the point that people need to test, like
Yeah.
ways that people need to test their ideas so they don't waste time or money. And
the key thing is to write down your assumptions. So if you wanted to be a dermatologist, you're assuming that there's going to be a demand for dermatologists, but you can test it. You can look up average wait times to see dermatologists in San Diego. I tried to go to a foot specialist last year. It was so hard to get in to see a foot specialist.
oh wow,
I didn't know that.
high demand.
Yeah, nurses are in very high demand, so you can just become a nurse. But basically the point being, well, most college counselors, if you're in college, can tell you what the demand is going to be for what you want to be, but you don't often have that kind of counselor outside of college. Nobody's guiding you and what's going to be in demand, but you can find it out. You definitely want to start learning to search. What's really great, just as an aside, so Google has a program called OpenAI. Have you heard of OpenAI?
No.
So it's an artificial intelligence mechanism. It's a chat machine. And, Google has indexed into their database, pretty much the whole world. And that includes the scientific and energy and political and, all these things Google has in there. So I don't know when they started it. Let's say 10 years ago, Google started a project called OpenAI. Now, OpenAI was about creating, when you used to watch Star Trek, when you were, whatever version of Star Trek you watched the most, the captain of the ship would occasionally just ask the computer, how far is it going to take for us to get to blah, blah, blah? And the computer would just tell him. Like, all you have to do is ask, now we say Alexis or Siri, So Google has a machine online called OpenAI. And you go to openai.com and you sign up for an account. And it has a little button that says, chat with the GPT. What does the GPT mean? Google whatever. I don't know what it means. It's the chat GPT. And you click on it. And that's what it is. It's the Star Trek computer.
Wow.
And so, I will just show you what you can do because it happens to be on my computer right now.
Yeah. Fascinating.
So you can ask Google's OpenAI about jobs. It's that smart, I'm pretty sure.
OpenAI.com, is that the one?
I already have a login.
Chat GPT,
Yeah, Chat GPT. I have a login, so I can get in really fast.
Yeah.
I hope it opens properly for me.
Fascinating. I'm looking at the landing page right now for openai.com. Join us in shaping the future of technology. And I can probably share my screen so people can see. API, research, blog. Fascinating.
So I'm just going to ask the chat bot, are clean energy jobs in demand? What are the most in demand? I don't know if this is the right way to phrase this question. So it's answering us now. This is basically the computer. Clean energy jobs are in high demand as the transition to renewable energy sources becomes increasingly important to address climate change and reduce reliance on fossil fuels. The demand for clean energy jobs is expected to continue to grow in the coming years. Some of the most in-demand clean energy jobs include solar panel installers, wind turbine technicians, energy efficient specialists, energy auditors, biomass plant operators, geothermal technicians, hydroelectric plant operators. So then you can ask it,
Oh my God.
what's the average salary for these jobs? Where are they located? And this thing will just tell you. So it's like you just spent 20 minutes reading, Googling something and then reading through everything it spit back at you. And this thing just tells you.
Wow.
And you can ask it anything you want, and it's learning to phrase it. And then it remembers what you asked it the last time. Can you refine the part about solar energy, solar panel installers? Like, how good is that job? What kind of jobs are there in the solar panel installation industry? And it'll just keep telling you. It's like you're talking to this really brilliant person.
I want to make an account as soon as we're done here. Start asking all kinds of questions.
I know. It's really smart. And sometimes it says, I just don't know that stuff because, and it'll tell you why,
Okay.
I was told to not answer that question.
Oh, that's classified.
I know.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And you can ask it if flower shops are a good business to get into in San Diego. And it'll say, well, they've been dying off,
Oh, this is so fun. Steve, thank you.
Yeah,
thank
thank
you for this. It's been a wonderful having this chat with you. If people want to learn more about you and also about this 1 million cups, how can they connect with you?
So you can go to 1millioncups.com/San Diego. So 1millioncups.com and /San Diego. My name's listed as one of the founder or the current operators, but my picture's not there. And then you can just click on it and say, you can request to have a meeting made about your company. Then I can see your phone number. Or you can just email me at steve@stevebickel.com. Yeah.
And Steve Bickel is STEVE.
B as in boy, ICKEL.com. Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
Nice to meet you. Nice to see you, Fernando.
Nice to see you again. First time we chatted, and I heard you speak so passionately about the kelp and the robots and the scientists you've been helping. I was like, okay, I would love to interview you and have a chat with you.
Robots and 3D printers of robot parts are going to become huge. So anybody that's young, that's out there wanting to know what you want to get into, soft robots are like going to be huge, meaning they're going to be squishy.
Amazing. Yeah. And I was surprised to find that Scripps. So I had a client, and then she wanted to work with scientists that worked with dolphins. That's who she wanted to work with. And then I was like, okay, well, let's Google. And then I remember Scripps, driving by Scripps by many times, going to the Sunset to Glider Port. And so I went to their site, and they had a Zoom meeting there, open to everyone. And so we signed up and we attended, and there were a lot of industry leaders showcasing what they do in the world of, the sea life. So I was surprised that it was open to the public.
Yeah.
So for those of you thinking about getting into these types of businesses or futures, a lot of things are open. You just have to go to certain sites, Google, and then message people. Sometimes there'll be Zoom meetings that you can register yourself into. And I was very surprised to then be in a group of a lot of scientists that I could ask questions. Yeah. And then just being in the know of what the future has, what their vision of the future is. And then the opportunity was there to contact them. Yeah. And you have their phone number or email address, like right away within 1 hour. Yeah. So little tip there for you guys, and connect with Steve. I know I want to connect with you and come and to one of these meetings and be part of the 10 deck slide, because like, you know, I've shared like one invention with you prior to us starting recording. And so thank you for
thank you.
Awesome, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. Comment, like, share, and if you have a takeaway, call someone and or message someone about that inspiration, the takeaway that you've taken from this conversation. Be well, happy holidays, and live freely. Bye-bye.